if anyone in the world can do it, so can you. If people can get that, I hope to give that to my kids. Like, if you want to be an astronaut, why wouldn't you? If you want to be the president of the United States, why wouldn't you? Like, you can. You just have to figure out what it's going to take to get there and do it. Take a step every day. And so that paradigm was in my brain maybe when I was young, I don't exactly remember, but this idea of no matter what it is, it may just take time and a particular skill set, but if you want to run a multi-$100 million business, find someone who's doing it and get them to mentor you, or find 10 people that are doing it and learn little things from them, right? It's all there. It's all been done before, right? So that was kind of where my paradigm came around. If you can't, you must.
My philosophy is very, very simple when it comes to my family, particularly, me being a dad. If they're hungry, it's because I'm starving. I don't eat until they eat. I'm not comfortable until they're comfortable. I don't have unless they have. That's the mentality, and that's the mentality that I strictly get from my mother. And so for me, having that kind of mentality, well, what comes with that? What comes with that is a certain work ethic that you have to put forth.
It's easy to slip back into, I'm not going to push myself, because when people blow smoke up your ass constantly, 24/7, 365, it's a good feeling, Even
the most vigilant, high-performance person will be subjected.
Absolutely.
You've seen that.
That's why guys like Gates, the late Steve Jobs, Elon, they don't hang. Eagles fly alone. It's hard for the birds that are flying at 10,000 feet to blow smoke up your ass when you're at 25,000 feet.
People are trying to do the impossible right now. They're trying to save what they make. Dude, it's easier just to make another $4 grand. There's no shortage of money. There's no shortage of money on this planet. There's plenty of money. You said it, $4 trillion has been freaking manufactured. You got to first decide there's no shortage. Clear up your thinking about what your daddy thinks a lot of money is. And get rid of the thinking that you make enough. You don't, nobody does. And then start thinking, okay, my first target should be 125. That gets you in the top 5% of all the earners on planet Earth. Okay? If you earn 125 grand a year, it's $10,000 a month.
Top 5% planet Earth.
Planet Earth, bro. You're on top. You're at the party now. At least you've been invited to the party of prosperity on planet Earth. I'm not talking about money, man. I'm talking about taking care of your kids. Well, you want to send them to school. You're going to have to buy a car. You probably need a house at some point. You need clothes. You got to have food. You're going to have an emergency. You need some freaking dough. Yeah. I'm not talking about money, right? So now if you want to get in the big leagues, now you got to start thinking about these other numbers. 250, 400, $1 million a month.
It doesn't take any talent to be a critic. It takes real work to think through an idea and see the world differently from everybody else, articulate it, and then put your reputation on the line and go popularize it, right? That's work. It's not easy to do. And you have to be willing to be unpopular.
When I was 15 years old, starting into my exercise journey, I remember sitting on the couch and not wanting to go to the gym, and it flipped in my brain. I was like, the harder this is, the stronger I become. So the more I feel this pull to stay home, the more I go. I was 15 years old and it was freezing cold in Canada, grew up in Toronto, and I go out running at 5 in the morning, and people go, why do you do that? Because it sucks. And that was always my belief. I was like, because I hate it. And I would go off until I just threw up or until my lungs burnt. And maybe that was the inner contempt that I felt. But it was also like, I know that I don't want to do this. Nothing about me wants to do this. So I do it, right? And that may be what allowed me to build that mentality to overcome all of those obstacles that occurred during my bodybuilding career, right? And there was endless obstacles. There was a lot of deterrence. There was a lot of negative mindset. People think I'm just naturally a mentally strong guy, but oh man, I had more struggles than anybody, and that's why I succeeded, right? Because I used those struggles and I looked at them, and rather than saying, oh, I can't do it, I go, all right, I don't know if I'm going to come out on the other side, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to try, right? It's just like seeing it as an opportunity for progress. Your greatest obstacle is your greatest opportunity for growth and progress. And if I can switch that mindset rather than, oh, that's an obstacle, I don't want to go over there. Take the first step and then run full speed. And that's the greatest opportunity for progress. When you see the easy road over there, man, let everybody else go that way. Let them all go that way, and you go over there, right? And again, why did I build big legs? Or some people say some of the best legs in all time, because nobody else did it. I have so much respect for the guys who build the amount of muscle I did, because it's not easy, man. It's not, you get it, like it's not easy. And the amount of struggle I went through, and like I had such an obsession because I sucked at it. It's funny that, I was told I'd never be a professional bodybuilder because I had small legs and narrow shoulders. And if you ever want to look at a picture of my bodybuilding career, I had the biggest legs on stage by far and the widest shoulders by far, because somebody said that to me and I was like, okay, thank you. Like, right, I'm not gonna get mad at you. I'm not gonna take it in and go, oh, I don't, he was mean to me. Thank you. Fuel.
It's a willingness to sacrifice. Am I the most disciplined person in the world? No. Am I the most meticulous person in the world, like some people would believe? No, I'm meticulous enough and I'm disciplined enough, but I also know how to let go and relax or whatever, and sometimes I may not be as disciplined as I should be. But I think the key thing is that the bottom line is everything to me. And whatever the bottom line requires is what I'm going to do. If the bottom line requires an excessive level of discipline, I'm going to do it. If I can slack off a little bit and still achieve that goal, I might pick and choose from time to time to slack off just a little bit. Yeah. But to me, it's whatever the moment or the situation demands. And I'm a bottom lines oriented kind of person. I have an assistant. I have people who work for me. I have people who work with me. They'll tell you, I'm very bottom line kind of guy. If you tell me that the job is going to get done, and the job is going to get done in an excellent fashion, and it requires 90% effort, I'll let you go with that. I'll let you get away with that. I'm not going to sweat it. But if this requires 100%, and you give me 99, I might want to fire you. Because I'm about getting the job done. Sure. It's about the results. And I think that, unfortunately, when we look at our generation today, not enough people preach about that. Why
do you think that is?
Because I think that we live in a society where people have become masters at pointing the finger at other people about reasons why things don't get done. I think there's too much explanation that goes on.
What you taught me to do is to engineer risk into my life.
Correct.
So now every time I'm faced with a decision, or sometimes even when I'm not faced with a decision, I just think, how can I engineer more risk in this situation? Whereas before, I would try my hardest to engineer less risk in the situation, which meant growth was slow. And I played it safe. And at the end of the day, it didn't matter anyways. What, so a couple people thought I failed?
Yeah, so you played, instead of playing to win, you played not to lose. And one of the, not new concept, we talked about it when you were there a few years ago. When you start a business from zero, your first 50,000 in revenue is geometric. Your next 500,000.
Explain that to people. So when you start a business, any business, those first 50,000 in revenue is geometric.
Because it comes from zero, nothing.
Right, it goes from 0 to 50, you're just obviously
and then 50, from 0 to 500 is geometric. Okay, Microsoft started that way, Facebook started that way, Google. But then what people start doing is they start playing, instead of to win, they play not to lose, and they start not doing the same things that got them the first geometric growth. But the other more important thing, in my judgment, and it's really proven really beneficial to the kids in the last year or two, is that first million in revenue, because we buy revenue. It's easier to buy revenue than create it. That revenue that has $1 million now, we don't know how much he spent or they spent to create that $1 million. So when banks see that, you're de-risking the commercial debt. You're de-risking because you're having cash flow, free cash flow that covers debt service based on somebody else. It may have taken them 25 years to get $1 million in revenue. And you're buying it in a week, a month.
It's always great to let the other person talk. Let him talk. Let him just keep talking. Throw out a word that gets him a little bit, and he'll talk more. And as he's talking, you can kind of figure out his mentality, his personality, what you can get out of him, what you can't get out of him. And it helped me a lot in negotiating deals later on. And sometimes you may be the smartest person in the room, and you don't want anybody to know that. You just want to keep quiet like you don't know anything and let them think they're smarter than you. And there's other times when you're not the smartest person in the room, but you want people to think you are. So you have to learn how to have that skill.
I learned when I sat back and reflected on the mistakes that I had made in my career at the time. I learned that no boss wants to talk to anybody that doesn't have solutions. But there's a flip side.
That is very true.
There's a flip side.
Yeah.
I've never met a boss that doesn't want to talk to someone with solutions. See the difference? Now, if you don't want to talk to somebody with problems and you don't want to talk to somebody with solutions, then to me, you're the problem because you're not trying to solve. You want to go with status quo. You're perfectly fine, fine with flowing along, just
Safe,
to get along,
secure.
safe, secure, whatever. But when you're trying to win, you're constantly looking to get better.
Evening, sugar. Man, I hope y'all were as inspired as I was when I came across this video. It kind of helped me put things into perspective, especially with the mindset that we need to have right now today. And so I thought it was only important that we put ourselves in that right mindset and also get reconfirmation that we're in the right place, doing the right thing, learning the right skill set at the right time. Because guys, let's be honest, only the strong are gonna survive. And so as I do on all of our calls, I welcome you to this call by saying, hey, NSA. And that's just to let you know that I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not here to give you financial advice. I'm just simply here to give you some insight, some information, right? Some techniques, some tools, right? Some strategies to help you with your trading journal. Hopefully so that you don't make some of the same mistakes that we did along the way. So as I start all of our calls with our daily affirmation, I am so thankful and grateful now that I have confidence, patience, and discipline so that I am a master trader. And I start all of our calls with that daily affirmation. I hope that you use it every day to inspire and motivate yourself so that you're in the right frame of mind to know that those are the life skills that you're going to need to be able to strengthen so that you too can become a master trader. So I welcome you all to the call. This is the Harmonic Scanner 52 Weeks to Freedom course, class number 8. And for those of you who don't know, my name is Jacqueline Lopez, and I am your honored educator for the first 12 weeks. And so I am so excited that all of you have made it thus far and have been able to learn from me, hopefully some insights, some tools and technology, right? Some skill sets that's going to help you become successful along your journey and help you just to enhance it. I'm not here to replace the academy. I'm just here to give you an extra set of eyes, right? A new viewpoint to look from. All right? So this class 8, is always the class that I like to focus in on putting everything that we've learned thus far together and using the Milwaukee sauce to help us find setups, right? So that's really what we're going to focus on tonight. It's going to be diving into the charts, looking at the sauce, looking at the scanner, right? Making sure that we know what pairs are going to be most active while we're looking at them, which ones should start to move more frequently as time goes on, right? Also paying attention to the ATR and the weekly trend and what we should be looking for as we start to plan for next week, right? Because we're always planning for the future because time never sits still. All right, so here are the steps to the Milwaukee sauce, right? And I broke them down as detailed as I could be so that it will give you some insight as to how to use it. And as I always tell you, it's all about the cross, right? It's that first cross with the 3 and the 10 that we're waiting for to give us an alert to tell us that something is getting ready to take place in the market, right? And so we're looking for the blue to be on top for buy setups, the red to be on top for sell setups. Once we notice which direction the cross is indicating we're getting ready to go, then we start looking at the RSI. Is it in the street? We're looking for traffic, right? Is it above the street, below the street? So we know which direction is confirming that the market is going into. Then we start looking for the MACD, right? We want to know, is the blue on top? Is the red on top? Is it above or below that zero line? And how that is correlating, right, with step number 4, which is that mighty 50, right? We want to know where that 50 is in relationship to the candles. Is it above the candles? Is it below the candles? Or is it running flat line with the candles? So then we know, what are we doing if it's flat line? We're being patient. We're waiting for the break, the retest, and the trade, right? And then we're looking at the Fibonacci candles overall to give us an indication of what direction the trend is going in. And the flat bottoms and flat tops, they will also help us know that the trend is moving strongly in that direction. All right? So that's a brief overview of how it all works. And hopefully you'll be able to have an aha moment this evening as we see it happen live on the chart. All right, so let's just dive right into it. And let's see. All right, guys. Quick question. Has everyone been working on their ATRs? Have you been paying attention to at least the ATRs for the pairs that you've been watching or your primary pair?
Yes.
What do you want? Let me see. I can hear you. Wait a minute.
All right, well, look, guys, if you haven't been using it, hopefully this evening's class is going to give you some insight as to why you should be using it, right? Okay, so take a look at this particular pair, right, which is AUD-USD. All right, now, AUD-USD, if you notice, basically since the beginning of the year, the very first week, it's been moving in a downward direction, right? It's been selling this entire time since the very first week of this year, right? And if you notice, it actually touched the 50, right? It tested it, and then it bounced off of it, right? And if you notice, once it bounced off the 50, there was a cross that happened. And if you notice, this is on a weekly time frame. Right? Now, had you been watching the ATR and watching the weekly trend, then you would have known right around January 20th that a cross was happening, right? Because you actually would have gotten the alert here, which would have been that following week, which would have been the 27th of January. And if you notice, not only was the red on top here, it was under the street clearly here. And look what was happening on the MACD. It was just getting ready to kiss and cross. Now, from a weekly time frame, if you also notice, right, that there is a flat top here, right? So you could have safely waited to the week of February the 3rd, seen that it was under the 50, it was clearly red on top, it was clearly under the street, right? And the MACD now has crossed, right? Giving you a clear sell indication. Now, had you jumped in on a smaller time frame during this week, catching a sale, you could have rolled this entire sale from February the 3rd all the way down. Look, from here all the way, right, to the lowest point, which was over 1,200 pips, almost 1,300 pips in 42 days. All you had to do was find the right entry on a smaller time frame and ride that wave all the way down. Right? Mind blowing. Exactly. On a weekly time frame. So watching it, and if you notice, right, the Hakanashis is still indicating a sell, right? However, I'm going to show you something, and this is the reason why I brought up changing over to the Japanese candlesticks once a pair has exhausted itself in any one direction. So for example, AUD-USD has exhausted itself to the downside, right? It would be safe to say that based on looking at, right, my RSI. And how do I look at that? I'm going to show you. If you start to zoom out, right, on a weekly time frame so that you can see the entire RSI, and then you take a horizontal line and you find basically, right, your resistance. You find it basically at the very top of where the most times the RSI kind of hit it. And it's not going to be perfect, guys. Everybody going to find their own. I might have seen it up here. Some of you might have moved it down here, right? But if you notice, it kind of gives you an indication of where there is a zone or a range of where this particular pair starts to exhaust itself to the upside, right? And you do the same thing for the downside, right? And once you do that, then it starts to give you a little prettier picture. So now check it out. This is current day. Based on me marking up where the highs and the lows were on the RSI, it's already telling me we're at the low. This pair has exhausted itself on a weekly time frame. Does everybody see that?
Yes.
So that then makes me want to go to the Japanese candlesticks, because I know that this thing is going to start moving in an upward direction. And what is it doing? moving in an upward direction, which also lets me know that this is possibly a sign of an early reversal. This is going to start moving more in an upward direction because it has exhausted itself. Does everybody understand that? So what I would be looking for is to see what's going to happen when this week actually closes, right? And see where this thing starts opening for next week. And then as we get into next week's class, we'll have more indicators, right? More tools that we can use that'll help us give us more confirmations to show us which direction the market is moving in, right? So now you see, when you go from Hakanashi's, it's showing you a clear sell, right? Still flat top, still clear red. But because I know that this has exhausted itself, I also know based on this exhaustion wick here, right? The candle shot down all the way down here and then pulled all the way back up. And if you notice, it's still pulling up. This candle is smaller than this candle. So the candles are getting smaller, which is showing us, right, that the momentum is starting to die down. And if I'm right about that, we'll start to see that the RSI will start to push and point up in an upward direction, right? Same thing with the MACD. It will start to consolidate and then move towards the upward direction. Same thing here with the moving averages. They will consolidate, the candles will get smaller, and they will start to move in another upward direction. Does everybody understand that?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Now that's from a weekly perspective. Once you know which direction the trend is actually moving in, once you've determined, is this thing actually going to be moving overall upward all week, or is it going to be moving overall downward all week, or is it actually going to consolidate all week? Because you'll find that out, right? You'll start to see that, where the pairs will consolidate. Look at this. There was a large drop, right? That happened from here when it crossed, which is what? September, right? Of 2014. And that sale basically lasted all the way till about here, which is March of 2016, which is what, almost 2 years, a year and a half, that this particular pair sold. Now, it did have some pullbacks, and everybody can see that. But overall, this was a downward trend. And then if you noticed, from March all the way, right, pretty much, even though it was still pushing upward in somewhat of a direction, right? It's kind of moving upward, but it's kind of consolidating in this little zone here, right? Before it broke out and started moving back to the downside. Right? So basically it consolidated in this area before it broke out again from March 2016 for another 2 years to April 2018. Right? So you have to look at this thing from the bigger picture first. First, you have to see what's actually happening in the world, right? What's going on in the marketplace. is their economy moving in this direction, or is it moving in this direction? Is this currency moving in this direction, or is this currency moving in that direction? Okay, so then that brings up the question. If we know that AUD USD was selling, right? It was selling for 2 years. Then which one of those currencies was the strongest for 2 years? Can anybody tell me that? And you should have known this by knowing your currency strength and knowing how the tug of war works, right? Exactly, USD. Exactly. The United States dollar, right? Because we know that if the quote is strong, right, then we know that that pair is going to sell. And we know, based on currency strength and knowing how the heat wave works, right, knowing how that tug of war works between the buyers and the sellers, then we know for 2 years the dollar was running stronger than the Australian dollar, right? We also know that by looking at these other trends here. Okay, so then you ask yourself, all right, so how does this play a role, right? All right, once we switch over to the Japanese candlesticks, we now know that this thing is moving this week in an upward direction, right? The RSI is pointing up. This candlestick is obviously blue, right? So that we know that it's been pulling up. But we still see that the MACD is still strong, moving in a downward direction, right? So what I would do is I would wait for further confirmations on this pair. However, that's what your alerts are for. So if you start getting alerts on AUD USD, and we've already looked at it and determined that we're anticipating that it should start moving in an upward direction, right? Then you're going to start looking for buy setups for this particular pair, right? But you're going to want to make sure that it's actually moving in that direction before you do, right? All right. That's how we're looking at using the ATR and all of that. The other thing that I'll point out is that I'll show you the first few pairs of the tracker. So look, guys, AUD USD, like I said, has been running red this entire time. Last week alone, it gave out 994 pips, right? But if you notice, it doesn't average really a lot of pips. It wasn't until we started having all of these other things in the news, all of these other factors, right, that are affecting the market, that now we're starting to see how it's impacting these pairs. And if you notice, just by looking at these first few pairs, look at the difference between some of these weeks, right? From 194 pips to 561, or 120 pips to the upside, and then it just completely just reverses and it falls through the floor to 532 pips, right? Or look at all JPY. It shot down 725 pips last. You understand what I'm saying? These last couple of weeks. So look at this. Last week was crazy. Look at this. 979 pips, AUD JPY. Right? That's almost 1,000 pips in 1 week. Right? But look, the ATR says that it's only averaging this many pips. And this is even on the high side because of these inflated numbers. Right? So paying attention to how those unforeseen, right, those uncontrollable, right, occurrences and circumstances that impact the market are going to affect how many pips each pair gives out, and how that impacts our analysis, and how we need to pay attention to that, right? All right. I'm hoping that we're going to get some alerts while we're on class. Let's see. All right, so check it out. Look at this one. NZDJPY. Look, red is on the top. It's under the street. Red is on the top, right? But look, it hasn't completely broken that 0 on the MACD because it's still retesting the 50. Does everybody see that? Right? So look, it broke the 50 with this long engulfing, right? It's going to retest the 50, right? And it should go to the downside, right? That's what it should do. Let's check the scanner and see. NZDJPY, is it on there? Right? Because I use the scanner, guys, as confirmation. Even though I know how to mark up the charts on TradingView, why not use the system that we paying for, right? Why not utilize the experts? Because that's what they're there for. Right? So once we get the scanner pulled up, I pull up my sauce, right? And what was that pair? NZDJPY. And I look for where it is on the scanner. And what was that, an hour? I think it was an hour chart. What was it? It was an hour chart. And look, right? The scanner called it for a buy. It went up. It came back to the 50, right? It retested the 50. It went back up for a buy, right? It came back down because it basically retested TP3, right? Because we all know that that is a support and resistance line, right? Everybody sees it retested it, right? It came down. It pulled back up to it, right? And then it pulled down. It broke the 50, consolidated, pulled back up to the 50, broke it, retested it, right? Shot up, retested it, and continued to the upside, right? Exhausted itself, right? Let's see what happens if we draw a line there. Just because we want to see, right? Because it might be something. Look, right? Here go another support and resistance line, right? We see it. Everybody see it? Just because I seen that wick. Because we know the wick tells us what, right? That there is some resistance there. It can't break through, right? All right. So look, 1, 2, 3, right? Pushing to the downside, right? If it retests the 50 and continues to the downside, it's a good possibility that it's just going to go right back down the channel. And it's going, right? Because if you notice, what is it doing? It's running right along TP3. Look at that. Right? So it went up. It came back down. If it breaks and closes underneath TP3, it's going to have to break TP3 for it to actually continue to the downside. Otherwise, if you notice, it's been consolidating on TP3. Does everybody see that for the last 1, 2, 3, 4 hours? right? And if you notice, look, it's already starting to form a red candle because it's trying to break past that TP3. But it's got to break through it in order to continue to the downside, right? But based on everything that we know, based on the sauce, this would be a safe sell. It's already broken the 50, right? The red is clearly on top. It's underneath the street, right? But we know what? We know that this particular pair, based on what we've already talked about, let's see on a weekly basis, what is this thing doing, right? It's moving in an upward direction. See? So this might simply just be nothing more than a pullback, right? Or a fake out before it actually continues to the upside. And that's why you have to be careful with your analysis, guys, when you're looking at this from different perspectives, because, right, it's always something happening in the market that's unpredictable. That's why we can't guarantee anything. We can only make an analysis. It's like the science fair project. You come up with a hypothesis and you test your theory, and then you wait to see what the results of the outcome is going to be. Right? All right, so let's see if we can get something that's going to give us a clear setup. See if the scanner has anything. Some of these are already gone. Oh, this is a 15-minute. That's why. Let's see if we got any hours. All right, so look at that one. USD JPY on the hour. The scanner's calling for a buy, right? But it hasn't completed the D candle yet. So did y'all notice that the pattern just moved with the D candle? That's why you never want to actually place a trade on an active pattern, because if you notice, it'll move and shift on you, which will alter your analysis. Right? So what we're doing for this particular pair, look, it just moved again. What we would be doing is we would be looking USD JPY. Okay, that's a new scan. It's the first scan. So then we look to see, is it on multiple time frames? Nope, it's not. Right? And it's probably because it's still moving. Right? It hasn't actually finished developing the pattern yet. All right, so we just move on to the next one. And this is really what it is, guys. This is where the patience and the discipline comes in. We're not chasing no bag, right? I'm not sitting up here waiting, looking at the charts all day, right? I set my alerts when the alerts come in. I go, I look for my setups. I look for the steps. And if all of my steps don't check off on my checklist, then I don't take that trade. I just wait and I be patient until it happens. Like, look at this one, EURUSD. This one is still active on the D. All right, so here's a question. If the D is on top, what type of order are we placing?
Sell order.
Sell.
All right, so if the D is on the bottom, then we're placing
Buy order.
Buy.
All right, so everybody knows that. That is like trading 101 when it comes to the scanner, right? You gotta realize and recognize that above and beyond anything else. It seems so simple, but that's really what it is. Once you realize that, Then as we start to develop and you looking at these patterns more, and as we add more on to what you already know with the building blocks that we're going to develop, then it's going to become way more clear as to how important that D really is. So being able to make a note of it is very, very important, because that D is going to tell you the direction of what your trade is going to be. All right. So keep that in mind. All right, check it out. This one almost starting to set up. And this is even good because on the scanner, if you were watching the scanner, right, a few hours ago, right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hours ago, right, and you had an order in, or you placed an order here, right, you'd already be in this trade. And you'd be up, what, from entry right now, about 18 pips. And that's just using the scanner, guys, right? Just coming in, looking at the setups, going in, putting in, copying and pasting the entry in your MetaTrader 4 as a buy limit, right? Or a buy stop, depending on where the current candle is, right? When you're actually placing the order. And then just waiting for the market to take you to its destination, which is TP1. And that's 114 pips. Right? Now, keeping in mind, it took, let's see, to come from TP1 down to the entry, it took 3 hours, but those are some pretty large candles, right? Which is the 117 pips. So just keeping in mind, this could happen in an hour, it could happen in a few hours, right? It just depends. Each pair moves at a different speed, at a different pace, right? Now, if you're looking at the sauce, I would wait, right? I would wait because I don't know if this downward trend has finished yet, because it's still showing me a sell. The red is still on top. It's still underneath the street. The red is still on top, right? It's still under the 50. Right? Now, once this 3 and the 10 actually crosses, right? Once the RSI comes up out the street, then I start looking at this thing a little bit more closer. Then I'd be wondering, has the MACD crossed over yet? Right? And if it has, then it's a good sign that once all of them line up, even though it's under the 50, it could potentially pull back up to the 50, right? Before it gives you any resistance. Now we know it's going to give you some probably right here around TP1. And that would be our safer trade, which would be about 83 pips. So what I would do is set an alert for UCAD, right? You're waiting for the red and the blue to cross. You want the blue to be on top. You want the RSI to be above the street. And you want the MACD to cross with the blue on top. If all of those 3 things align, even if it's under the 50, depending on where the 50 lands, because it could end up where this thing consolidates until the 50 gets closer to TP1 before it actually does the move. Because if you notice, this 50 is pointing downward. Right? And really, our trading plan is only having us go for 30 pips. So 30 pips is what? Oops, sorry guys. So check it out. If we take the, even if it goes all the way back down to the entry, which it might even go back to the entry, retest the entry before it even crosses. If it does and it gives you 30 pips, that ain't nothing. That's about 30 pips, which is where it is right now. Right? It only takes 30 pips, guys. But once you learn how to master this thing, all you got to do is trail it. Trail it. Just trail it and just run with it until it crosses again, until it pulls back on you, and then jump out. All right. So UCAD is one to watch. Let's see, just for kicks and giggles. Oh, check it out. It's on the 4 hour. And look, the 4 hours also calling for a buy. Right? And it's consolidating on the entry. So once this actually does start moving, it's going to move for a while. If it goes all the way to take profit 3, that's 333 pips. Right? Now, it might take you some time. Let's see, it took a day and 12 hours to do it. Right? So since the 24th, it's been selling. Right? Now, what you want to do is you want to have multiple confirmations, guys, right? You want to see it on the 1 hour, the 4 hour, even the day if it can, right? 15-minute too if you catch it early enough. All right, on the 15-minute, not a 15-minute because it was so long ago. Yeah, that's an old one. It was way down here. But if you notice, it was on multiple time frames at one point in time. But right now, it's definitely on the hour as a buy, and it's on the 4 hour as a buy. Right? I wonder what it looks like on the week. You can't. Check it out. This thing been climbing, and now it's starting to pull back. But it's still definitely pointing upward. Look at that. Let's see this way. Right? And then look. Basically exhausts itself right in here. Yeah. Right in there.
The card. Yeah. Right. Right here. This side.
Yeah. Okay. So now look, check it out. It's basically exhausted itself, right? And the Japanese candlesticks confirm it. Look, it's starting to push back down. Right? It's starting to push back down. It's starting to point back down, right? The next candle, right, which is next week, right? Is it going to push down or is it going to continue to the upside? It's a good possibility it's going to push down. But we're going to have to wait to see what this week is going to finish out doing. Right? And that's where your ATR is going to come in handy, knowing how many pips has it been typically given out, right? How many tips should it be typically given out, right? With these spikes right here, right? It was spiking. Why? Because, right? The dollar was strong, right? We know that. Why? How can we check the dollar? right? By looking at the dollar and what happened with the dollar, right? It spiked these last couple weeks, right? And this is the dollar, guys. This is us looking at the dollar, seeing the strength of the dollar, and then knowing the correlation between the dollar and all the other pairs, and how if we know which direction the dollar is moving in, if we know how strong the dollar is, then we know which direction the other currencies are going to move in. That's the reason why we study currency strength. That's the reason why we study currency correlation, right? That's the reason why we're studying the history of the pairs, right? And how the market came to be, and why the dollar is the currency that all of the other currencies are basing, right, their relationships on, right, their values on, the importance of the dollar, right, paying attention to those things, right? All right, now that just gives you an idea, right, of how to be looking at these things when you're looking at your charts, right? When you're doing your analysis for the weekend, you want to start with the week. Start looking at the week and see which direction this thing is moving in. Once you know which direction it's moving in, then you can start looking for potential setups on a smaller time frame, right? Use the scanner to your advantage so that way you're actually using the tools that we're paying for, right, to make further confirmations for your analysis, right? And then this week, you're going to want to really focus on calculating those ATRs. If you haven't done it for yourself, use the tracker that I placed in the study groups. You already have the majority of the work done, right? You only have a few weeks that you have to do, and then just keeping it current so that you can stay abreast of what's going on in the market, what's happened in the past, because guess what? That's all we're doing, is making an analysis based on what's already happened, right? So that we can determine which direction the market is going to go in based on our analysis, right? Study your pairs, study the sauce, practice it, follow your trading plan, right? Keep your emotions in check. If you know overall the trend is moving in a downward direction and you place a trade that is a sell trade, be confident that that trade is going to move in a downward direction, and you're just going to have to withstand the pullback, right? Just withstand the pullback. Control your emotions and just follow the trend, follow your plan, right? Look for your setups, share them in your study groups. That's what we're here for, to help you mark them up, to see if we see what you see, right? So that we can all help each other. We're always a student. We always gonna be learning from one another, right? What I see, you might not see. Maybe you might see things in a different way and can actually teach it or share it in a way that someone else can make better sense of it. There's nothing wrong with that, guys. Stay plugged into the study groups. Stay plugged into the main Telegram group, guys, and have a profitable week. All right. I love you all. I know it was a lot of information, but I just wanted to make sure that you could see how we use the sauce and everything that we've been using thus far to put this all together. And I hope that you had an aha moment this evening. And if not, as you go back and study these recordings, I'm confident that the aha moment is to come. All right, guys. I love you all, and I'll see you all next week.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Sugar.
Can I be Sugar too, Miss Jacqueline?
Everybody, Sugar. I love y'all all. Good night.
Good night. Thank you.